ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Fight for Our Freedom Radio. And I'm your host, Badbaby. And tonight we have with us again Robert Evans. We're gonna be posting up some links for you to click on and take a look at. And we got some more vital information that we're going to give out. And we're going to talk a little bit about some of the chemtrailing they're doing and just a whole plethora of information that we have for you guys tonight. It's going to be a really good show. Welcome back, Robert. It's so great to have you back. The room's starting to fill up already.
I see it, yes. I'm watching. I'm hearing myself on a talk show. Active.
Okay. Did you mute your phone?
No.
Okay. All right. You muted yourself on the screen, right?
Yes.
Okay. Let me address Mark here for a minute. Mark, I don't know whether you follow me on my window or not, but I would advise you to follow me because for some reason TalkShoe is not showing my show up when I'm on the air. So the only way you're going to know I'm on the air is if you get a reminder email, and the only way you'll get that is to follow me. Yeah, they're trying to censor the information that I'm putting out there. So I have been back on the air for a couple months now, I think I've been back on the air. So just go ahead and log into the window, and everybody else too. If you want to know when I'm absolutely going to be out here, go ahead and follow me on TalkShoe, because when I have a show, I always send out an email. So you will get an email saying I'm on this Friday and who my guest is going to be. Okay, Robert, let's get started. We got a lot to talk about tonight.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, great. Well, you said you wanted to talk about the chemtrails. I think I sent you a copy of that already. So this was actually, let's see, back in 2006, 2007, Dr. Hildegard Stanger from RIET, they had been receiving chemtrail samples from all around the world. They started doing this stuff sometime in 2005, 2004, 2005. So they received samples from Italy and from the state of Texas. And the interesting thing is that they went over this stuff just like any major lab would. They finally looked at everything, and one of my friends sent me a copy of the lab report, and it even included photographs. Okay? And on that first page of that lab report, it says they were all man-made fibers that they were dumping in the air, and that's what they found. Now, this one lab called it all Morgellons. So the thing I sent you is called Morgellons Special Number 7. And it has plenty and plenty and plenty of photographs in it. It's exactly what they found.
Well, I actually know a few people that did go to see Dr. Staninger that were having quite a few problems with Morgellons. And she does some extensive testing there. But, you know, after a while, she was censored. I think she was approached because a lot of these people were targeted individuals.
Well, I'm looking at the lab report right now on my computer, okay? 3 fiber samples, presence of 6 elements, sodium, aluminum, phosphorus, calcium, sulfur, and chloride, which due to natural mineral fibers, but further testing using Raman technology in phase 3 confirmed they were nanotechnology, man-made nano composite materials.
Do you think, Robert, that the purpose of a lot of this spraying, because once they got the sky covered, we can't see too much what's going on past it. Do you
Exactly.
think that a lot of this spraying has to do with not being able to see what's coming at us?
Okay. A lot of people around the planet are seeing 8 different looking things in their skies. The planet Nibiru, according to NASA imaged it back in 2008. Somehow, it has 13 planets, planetoids, dwarf planets, whatever the term you want to use for these things. Each one has different stripes, has different colors, and we have 8 of them, the 8 outermost from Nibiru. Nibiru orbits clockwise between Jupiter and Mars. And this one image from NASA clearly showed 13 lines going off, pointing towards different things. One of these things we humans know very well for a very, very long time. It's a reddish-looking thing. It's been seen over Europe, seen over Scotland, Ireland, over Mexico. The Holy Bible calls it wormwood. The ancient Egyptians, which knew it from the Exodus, 1613 BC, they called it the destroyer. The Hopi people here in the United States, they call it the red kachina. The Hopi prophecies go quite well as to what has happened over the thousands of years. The Hopi world number 3, before the flood, Noah's flood, or more properly, Zayasudra's flood. Noah went by several different names. That was roughly around 12,900 something years ago. Now, for all of your listeners who've watched the movie 2012, if you can remember, near the end of the film, you have the Chinese monk up in his tower, and he feels the wind over his right ear. So he turns around and he sees the oceans coming over the mountains. Well, my friends, that goes back to an ancient Chinese emperor named Yao, Y-A-H-O-U, 2,900 years ago. So this has happened 3 times in human history. See, what no one wants to talk about is that, yes, we have 8 planets and one unofficial dwarf planet named Pluto. But there's a brown dwarf star that we call Nemesis, and it orbits around our solar system. Now, if your listeners can go to YouTube, they can pick on the one called Nemesis, the sun's evil twin, a 45-minute video, and it goes into great detail talking about this huge thing that's orbiting around our solar system. Although the scientist in there only mentions Sedna. He doesn't mention Nemesis. See, Sedna is a brown dwarf planet. It's number 7, which orbits around Nemesis. Any of your listeners can go to their astronomy programs. They can pick on the solar system and back way off. And then click on, if they have a row on the left-hand side or whatever, click on the button that says the dwarf planets. It's called Sedna, S-E-D-N-A. Click on that and go way back. You'll see this little tiny solar system with this humongous orbit all the way around it. Sedna has a nice circular orbit, but it's not orbiting around our sun. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So, what is it orbiting around? It's orbiting around the brown dwarf star that we call Nemesis. Now, in 2008, NASA leaked a great deal more information. See, a lot of the scientists at NASA, they don't like being kept silent. They want to try and warn as many people as they can. A lot of them have paid dearly for it. So,
isn't it obvious? I mean, that they're keeping America hush-hush about it, but China and Japan and Russia and all of them, they're telling all their people.
Well, I've only heard of Russia telling their people. Okay, I have. Now, China did try to use some of their news services to talk about it, but they clammed up rather quickly. Japan has used one or two of their news services to do the same thing. Italy did the same thing. They only put one or two things out on the internet that they were talking about this stuff. Everyone shut up rather quickly. Okay. The Georgia Guidestones are very clear. 1979. The Georgia Guidestones, 3 enormous blocks of granite on almost all 3, in almost every known language, in a basic 10 commandments. Don't do this, don't do that, don't do this. But it says very clearly, never let the population go above 500 million again. That's a 95% depopulation. Okay.
Well, one of the things that I saw on Facebook today was all the people that they're evacuating from Florida. They're making, if people, they're calling it a mandatory evacuation. The people that won't leave, they're making them sign a waiver saying, I don't know what the waiver says, saying that they opted out of the mandatory evacuation. And I
now,
thought,
that could be a legal reason.
Well, you know what I thought?
So none of the politicians in those areas could not be sued. Okay? They're giving this warning very clearly. It's a legal reason.
Yeah, but you know what? On the Weather Channel, I posted it on my page. There's a recording going around the Weather Channel yesterday, was telling everybody if you don't leave, you will die, and your children will die. They're coming right out saying that.
Well, according to the Weather Channel and everything else, almost 500 people died there in Haiti and around that area. Okay,
yeah.
So, a lot of these low-lying islands out there have very little ground above the ocean. And when they're saying there's supposed to be an 11 to 15, maybe 17-foot tidal, that would just wipe out everything. Almost everyone would be up on top of the roofs of their places. And with the hurricane going, you can't send out the military helicopters to pick them up. Okay, you're putting all the rescuers in danger. So, I can understand both sides of this. But at the same time, you don't want everyone looting everything you have because as soon as you evacuate, the looters come swiping in, and they take everything, or they destroy everything. So.
Well, a lot of people are saying that they want everybody out of the area because they're going to bring the UN in after the storm goes through. Well,
there's been a lot of rumors for years. This is the main thing I think most of your listeners really want to listen. They don't want to listen to this idiot standing on a corner with a cardboard sign saying the world's coming to an end. Okay? Pope John Paul II. Pope John Paul II, 1980. He went to a German town, and he met a whole bunch of high-paying Catholic people there, but there was also 2 reporters. Now, they started to bug him about the third secret of Fatima. And I'm going to pull it up real fast here, so I'm not losing anything. He finally gave up, and he said that the popes before him decided not to leak the stuff in 1960, as the one nun put down, because they would start grabbing land. They would cause many coups all around. But, okay, what if it was in writing that the world's oceans would cover every continent, killing millions within minutes? Why talk about it? Okay? Very clear. Very clear. No ifs, ands, or buts. I'm sorry. I had to research the holy heck out of that. The Vatican downplayed what he said about a day or so later. He never repeated this warning again while he lived. In the mid-1990s, an Israeli Vatican U.S. space probe called Silo was sent out from the Earth well past Pluto, met up with the incoming Nibiru. It videotaped it and did whatever else. It came back to the Earth, and some people said this in less than a month. And what's NASA say? We have to send these space probes. It takes 12 years to go out to see Pluto? It came back and it downloaded the videotape and lots more information to a secret Jesuit base up on a HARP facility up in Alaska. The Vatican finally released the photographs in 2000. So these are pictures of the exact planet. Okay? That's 2000. NASA imaged Nibiru in 2008. In 2009, they leaked information showing Nemesis, its 6 planets, and its Oort cloud all the way around it, and they showed it would be interacting with our solar system around 2015. Because very clearly on the date for December 21st, 2012, they had already projected back in 2009 that Nibiru would be 20 AUs away, astronomical units, from the Earth to the Sun, 93 million miles. So 20 times that amount before it entered into our solar system. I showed these photographs, these images, to an astronomer friend of mine, and he worked out the incoming speed of Nibiru. He said we wouldn't start to see it until November or December 2014. And that's when it started showing up in our skies with the red wings on either side. Now, the red wings only showed up because Nibiru was into our solar system already, and the solar wind was hitting it, causing the red wings to appear on both sides of it. On April 10th, 2015, over Antarctica, the Neumayer Station number 3, they had been tracking something for years. It became very clear in the black and white webcam. It showed a nice round something with a certain type pattern stripes on it. One of my friends in Illinois on April 29th saw the exact same thing in color in her skies. And then it's been seen over and over and over. We have seen 8 different looking things. The last one, planet number 13, became very clear in our skies on 07/08/2015. I've got the photographs really clear. A lot of my friends from around the planet are sending them in. And people are starting to wonder about this stuff.
Yeah.
Because no one's talking about it. But you see, all of the world's governments have been prepared for this since 1955. President Eisenhower met with the Nordics, which was the old name for the Anunnaki, at Holloman Air Force Base in New Mexico. They also met with Pope Pius XII in the Vatican Gardens. So he met with them personally. He described them very clearly. He said the Anunnaki were a warrior race.
Yep, I just had John Teeter on, and he said the same thing, that they're a warrior race, and that they've been here before, and that they travel around the galaxy, and they destroy a lot of, existing life forms.
Well, I can't say anything for that. You see, Zacharias Sitchin, he wrote several books while he was alive. His best one was called The Lost Book of Enki. And in that book, he talks about the 14 Sumerian tablets. I read that book several times in detail.
Mm-hmm.
Tablets number 9 and number 10 clearly describe Noah's flood. Zayasudra's flood. Okay? The Holy Bible only says it was Noah. According to other ancient documents that still exist, it was Zayasudra. So there's too many things that match up. I'm sorry. I have to walk very carefully when I'm talking about anything dealing with religion. It's a very thin line.
Well, are you aware of the replica that they built in, I think it's in Kentucky, of the boat, Noah's boat? And on the internet, they are telling people, they are advising, do not take your children to see it.
There's
and I
another
thought, why are
one.
they downplaying that? And
there's another one over. There's another one over in Europe. I think it's Norway, Scandinavia, something like that. It's built right to the exact type things.
Yeah.
You see, another type of document that still exists. It's in the Kolbrin Bible. Kolbrin. Kolbrin. And I'm going to dig that for you real quick right now.
Well, you know, I saw a documentary on that boat, and it was on I think it was on the History Channel when I saw it.
Years ago, they talked about it, yes. There was a team that went up and they actually found it. But it had slid down one of the two peaks which make out Ararat. There's two peaks, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Now, in the Coburn Bible, there's this one account which sounds like Zacharias Sitchin left this part out. Okay. The wise men went to Sarek, now called Zerapesh, and said to him, King, behold, the years are shortened and the hour of trial draws near. So these beings, which look just like humans, went to a king and said, build this ark fast. But this other person said that he had a dream the night before, just like in the Lost Book of Enki, where Enki went down and he couldn't speak directly to his person. He talked to him through his reed wall and told him to do this, this, and this. And just like in the movie 2012, the ark was built way up on the mountain, not down by the ocean like the king wanted it to be built. And this one thing makes it very clear. They would have 4 stories. It would be built to the exact length as put in the Bible, but the ship would be divided in 2, making 6 floors, or actually a 7th floor on top. And it was really interesting. He gives a very detailed list of how many people were to come on. One was there one for the quarrying the stones, one the making of bricks, one the making of axes and weapons, one the playing of musical instruments, one the making of bread, one the making of pottery, one the care of gardens. See, when you're trying to save everything, you bring every one of every trade so they can rebuild. You know,
they had to have a purpose in order to get on the boat.
Right. Okay, one the carving of wood and stone, one the making of roofs, one the making of timbers, one the making of cheese and butter, one the making of trees and plants, one the growing of trees and plants, one the making of plows, one the weaving of cloth and making dyes, one the brewing of beer, one
the
selling...
that's the same thing David Green said when he...
Well, he's probably reading the same thing. Right.
About going underground in the bunkers. They're doing the same thing with the underground bunkers. He said you don't get a ticket down there unless you're useful.
Right. Now, here's the big thing here. One, the making of chariots. Okay? The Egyptians never knew what a chariot was until the Hyksos came into Egypt during the 12th Egyptian dynasty. The Hyksos, Hyksos, introduced the making of chariots to the Egyptians. The Hyksos stayed in Upper Egypt near the Nile Delta until the end of the 17th Egyptian dynasty. Then they were kicked out, the Exodus. An Egyptian scribe named Ipiwer has a fully detailed account of the Exodus, but it's never mentioned. It matches the Holy Bible almost word for word. The Hyksos are a Canaanite people. No ifs, ands, or buts. They were Canaanite. Canaanite people usually are referred to as the Hebrews, the Israelis. The Egyptian army pushed the Hyksos people up towards where Jerusalem is now. Okay, the two brothers that led the southern Egyptian army to kick the Hyksos out, one was called Chamos, the other one was called Akhmos. Akhmos became the first Egyptian pharaoh to reunite Upper and Lower Egypt. He became pharaoh about 1550 BC. Akhmos, believe it or not, in Hebrew means roughly brother of Moses. Ippler's account said the slaves and evildoers were led out of Egypt by a priest prince from the inner courtyard of Pharaoh. That was the last time the destroyer was in our skies until now. Ippler described the destroyer very clearly, very detailed, as a huge reddish mass in the skies over Egypt. We only have one of these 8 objects that's red, and it's being seen very clearly as a huge reddish mass. The problem is that Nibiru and its 13 planets orbit around our solar system clockwise, from right to left. Every planet in our solar system, except for the dwarf planet Pluto, orbits counterclockwise, from right to left. These 8 objects which are being seen all around the planet are growing larger and larger and larger in our skies. Okay. The domes were started all around the planet around sometime during the 80s. The deep underground military bases. They were meant for the elite only, not for the average person. We started building here in the United States the FEMA camps from the East Coast all the way up to Alaska. FEMA paid for millions of these 3 to 5 person caskets, and thousands of them are buried or stacked out in front of each one of the FEMA camps. Then they also started building these huge train cars called Carmacks. Normally you see these on the railroad lines. They have cars and trucks. They're 2 decks. But what they did was they started putting these big metal sheets over the openings on both sides. And they have what normally would be called breathing holes. Now, a lot of my friends over the years, they saw these things placed on sightings. And most of the time they're under heavy guard. A couple of times people took the task and they went in real fast, took photographs inside them.
Yeah, I've seen them.
They have shackles, either welded or bolted inside. Now, why do you have to have shackles inside these huge train cars? Prisoner cars?
Yeah. Well, I know somebody whose son is welding those shackles in those cars.
Yeah. You see, the other problem, my friend, here is this. Too many people before Barack Obama became president had nightmares and dreams of a huge wall of water hitting the West Coast. And the survivors were all being picked up by the black helicopters. It was called the hiding times. You see, on the front of the military helicopters, they have what's called a FLIR device. The FLIR device picks up infrared, so they can see you on the ground for miles.
Mm-hmm.
They can either hit you with the guns on the helicopter, or they can land right there and pick you up. And everyone was being put inside these huge camps. See, here's another thing. Most of your listeners, I'm quite sure, know about Edgar Casey, the sleeping prophet.
Yeah.
Edgar Casey was fantastic with his, not dreams. He went into he went into almost like hypnosis.
Yes.
And he could tell a lot of stuff. Now, before he died in 1945, he was the first person to use the term pole shift. And he wrote many things about it. He also had many maps drawn up for him. And these maps the military has used for about 30 years now for all retiring, high-ranking retirees. They're supposedly have been told that when they're given a certain call, they get all their stuff together, and they're taken to something very quickly. And they were given one of these maps. Now, these maps were never supposed to have been leaked, but they've been leaked over and over and over. The main one shows the entire West Coast is gone, except for huge islands going all the way up to Canada. One of these islands is Lake Tahoe and Yosemite. The oceans go all the way up over Mexico and go up to the Four Corners area around Arizona, New Mexico, whole thing right there. The Great Lakes, they rip all the way down through the United States to the Gulf of Mexico, cutting the United States in two. Most of the East Coast is gone.
And Michigan only has a couple islands.
Michigan is mostly wiped out. So is Ohio. So they don't want that many survivors.
No. The infrared on the helicopters, I was watching the military channel one time, and you know how they cannot see you if you get under a pine tree.
Or if you get under one of those rain covers. There's the orange rain covers, then there's the silver rain cover that you can lay under, and the silver one will not allow heat detectors to see your body heat.
No.
Okay.
Well, if you don't have one of them and you hear the helicopters coming,
exactly.
You get yourself a pine tree to get inside of it, and they won't be able to see you.
Now, sometime around 2008, 2009, up to about 2010, and I've heard it's gone even further, every U.S. agency from the post office on down started buying up millions and millions and millions of rounds of ammunition and guns. Okay? So they started arming. And from what I've heard, they bought far more than the militaries have been allowed to buy for quite some time now. So a lot of people have had the idea, they're remote viewers, the ones that use their brains to think ahead. And some of them said that all this chemtrails has been poisoning everyone around the planet. That if you're a survivor, they can use the HARP facilities and their frequencies to do something to the human body. Now, all the elite, our leaders, have all been doctored against this stuff. See, they want a worker force. Unlike the Germans back during World War II, they just wanted everyone to die. The FEMA camps are, in my opinion, from my research and what everyone else is starting to say, there to be a worker force, because they're going to need people to rebuild as much as they can, and they're not going to pay you minimum wage.
Sure,
you're going to get
favor.
you're going to get food and water, and you're going to get a cot, if that.
That's why Obama passed that executive order giving them the right to have slave labor.
Hollywood has been warning the public for quite some time with the movies. The first movie was ID4, where the president was outed for not knowing anything about the ETs or Area 51. The next movie was Deep Impact, where you had the first black U.S. president, Morgan Freeman, and he outs the fact about the deep underground military bases to a reporter. They only have room for about 2,000 people for 6 months. Everyone else is on their own. The next movie was Battle L.A. Now, I'm quite sure a lot of your listeners have forgotten all about the comet Elenin, which was coming through in 2010. Interesting, it was a comet, but it was something else. See, the Russians came up with an article. It was called that Elenin was in direct communications with a Jupiter-sized planet, which was coming into our solar system far behind it. Jupiter-sized planet. Nibiru. I had a friend that worked at NASA. I haven't talked to him for years. The only people which were looking at the photographs were amateur astronomers. NASA never released a official photograph. So they were catching it, and it was coming in faster and faster. So I started to send him some of the photographs. And he started enlarging them up far better than anyone on Photoshop could ever do. It didn't look right. Then the Chinese come up with an article saying that Elenin had spaceships piggybacked on top of it. So I gave him a copy of that. And he said, wait, hold on a minute. Let's start really, and he just jumped this thing way up. Far, far better than anyone with a telescope could even think of doing. And Elenin had two things. One was on its port side, one was on its starboard side. And they were following it as it was coming in. And then something really ticked my friend off. I forgot what it was now. And he jumped that thing way up so big. I've got the photographs still. I'll see if I can try and send them to you. Here is this little tiny comet round thing at the front of this big, humongous thing. And he said this huge electromagnetic signature, which was encompassing these huge white things that were right on the back of the comet. He'd never seen anything like that before. It looked just like Star Trek. This is this huge magnetic envelope around everything, a huge ball. And he enlarged it up even further. and the things that you could see that were sitting on the back of this little tiny comet were just enormous. Now, in the movie Battle L.A., you had asteroids coming down on the Earth, and then these aliens came out of the oceans and tried to take over the planet. And that's probably what these things might have been. The next film was 2012, where you had the Earth's crust being heated up by the sun, where the Earth's crust would go around the mantle. It's called Earth crust displacement. That's the technical term for that. Normally, we call it pole shift. Now, these 8 things that are in our skies right now, they're huge. If they have a very strong gravitational electromagnetic pull, they can lock onto the Earth's crust, causing it to stand still briefly, causing an Earth crust displacement. Now, in the movie, the new North Pole was in Wisconsin. Sorry, the South Pole, because it also caused a magnetic pole shift.
So Wisconsin will be tropical.
No, it'd be frozen.
Oh, it'd be
because
frozen.
that would be because in the movie it was the new South Pole. Even if it was the North Pole, the San Francisco Bay Area would be up in the Arctic Circle. Okay? The Chinese, they know about this as well. Years ago, they started building these humongous cities down in Africa. They're fully ready. Water, power, sewer, but no one's living in them. They're heavily guarded.
So would that be like a nuclear winter? I mean, if you lived in, because I saw a posting where I can't remember who it was, but there was somebody, I can't remember exactly who it was. They're preparing for a nuclear winter.
Okay. The Hopi and their prophecies, very clear. Before the end of the 4th world, we're in the 4th world now. The 3rd world ended by water, and the Earth's rotation was reversed. Now, how do they know about the Earth's rotation being reversed? Now, there are 2 English authors. They made 2 nice books about 2000. The first one was very clearly named When the Earth Nearly Died. 9,500 BC. Roughly it's 12,500 something. Noah's flood, Zayasudra's flood, has been technically dated to about 12,900 years ago. They're right there in that time path. They both these authors in their books said this humongous thing came too close to the Earth. Its gravitational electromagnetic pull slowed down the Earth's rotation. Now, quickly for your listeners, where's all the water around our planet? It's around the equator. It's around the equator. And it's there at the equator only because of the Earth's rotation. You slow down the Earth's rotation, the water goes back around the planet, making it very deep. So, that's one possible reason for Noah's flood, Zayasudra's flood. That's exactly what the Hopi say the red Kachina will do to the earth. Now, there's only one red thing in our skies right now. It's this big, massive red thing. I've got photographs of each one of these things, all 8 of them. I've got all the leaked information. You know, the interesting prophet. All of your listeners should read.
Can you post some of those links up for those photographs for us in the chat?
I don't have post photographs in the chat, and so the signal's really kind of weak here where I live right now. I can't run over to the Starbucks.
Well, we'll just tell everybody. I mean, I know that a lot of these photographs are on your Facebook page. I go over there all the time, and I
exactly. I'm one of the few. I'm the only researcher researching Nibiru or the Anunnaki posting these photographs on my Facebook page.
Yeah.
Okay.
So anybody that wants to see these pictures, just look Robert Evans up on Facebook.
Robert H. Evans Jr. Okay. These 2 authors said that this thing would come back through. It would cause the Earth's rotation to be reversed. Now, it was kind of interesting. Just one account about building the ark. They also used the same term, the destroyer. So the Egyptians have known about the destroyer for a very long time. Now, when everyone got on the ark and it was floating, they felt intense heat and they felt intense cold. If the Earth's rotation was reversed, you would feel intense heat because all the winds would be still racing around the Earth at the same speed, the same direction, even though the Earth's rotation was going backwards. And then when the Earth was finally slowed down and went the other way again, it'd be very cold. That's why they found all the mammoths up there in Russia that were frozen. The frozen woolly mammoths. They had regular grazing in their mouths, in their stomach, where they were eating regular green grass and stuff. But then suddenly they were frozen still.
They didn't know what hit them, did they?
They've never explained why it happened. Okay? But there's no way. Here's a dead animal with a full stomach of grass and God knows whatever else, and yet he's frozen still. Okay? So they know, our leaders, the powers that be, I call them, they know what's coming. Okay? With these 8 things in our skies, almost every respectable person I've been listening to or reading from says things are going to go haywire sometime before the end of this year or into next year. Now, my contact, I can't mention what she is or who she is. She has told me to warn everyone to prepare for a 6-month backpacking trip. Not a car trip. Maybe motorcycle trip. See, because when the Earth's crust starts to shift, there's going to be heavy earthquakes all around the planet. So every bridge, every road is going to be out. Not to mention that our own people are going to be watching for anyone trying to go anywhere. You know, you'd be better off on backpack, away from the roads. I have backpacks for my wife and myself, and I have all the other things I think we will need. So I would really recommend that your listeners start doing something like this. You know, at first, when I first started researching this stuff, okay, sounds good. Okay, sounds good. But then when I started seeing these things in the skies over the United States, over Antarctica, webcams from various hotels in Mexico, all around the planet, and now on weather webcams where they're clearly showing them. A lot of my friends, they have fancy cameras that look into the infrared taking photographs, and they're clearly seeing them. My friends around the planet are just, when they see something weird in their skies, see, I know our leaders are working with the ETs, with advanced technology. They're trying to hide these things in our skies. They don't want the people to panic, and neither do I. I want to make that very clear. I don't want no one to panic. More people die from panicking than anything else. They're using something to hide these things in our skies where you can barely see them. Now, numerous people have sent me one photograph after another where here's this big, round, bluish ball where it looks like it's covered with clouds, but there's no other clouds in the sky. So it's standing out all by itself, but you can't clearly see what the heck it is. Now, I've got all these photographs. I just did another show yesterday with Rex Bear, and we were going over the photographs from the last 2 months. And it was, oh, geez. You look at these things in the skies, and they're not photoshopped. They're not being faked. They're being seen by people with their own eyes, with their cell phone camera, and with their fancy cameras, their fancy video recorders. And these things, and no one's talking about these.
Let's talk about those 3 astronomers that contacted Scott from Chile. You know that story, don't you?
I've heard of it, but I have not really checked into it too much.
Well, they did a video a couple days ago, and they contacted him. They're in the United States now, but they had very good photos of what's coming in, and they made the mistake of contacting NASA. And when they contacted NASA, the United States military went after them, and also the Chilean government. And they froze their bank accounts, they repossessed cars, and they just destroyed these guys. They ended up leaving the country, but they couldn't even get passports. They weren't, you know, they finally, I don't know how they got passports, but they're in the United States right now. They're hiding. They contacted Scott, and they gave him photos. He put them up, but they're scared to death.
Well, they don't want everyone to panic. They figure that when this all starts to happen, a great deal of people are going to die, just like Pope John Paul II talked about in 1980. And to them, it's easier to keep the sirens off, don't warn anyone that something's coming, and they just skip and jump down into their deep underground military bases and close the doors. Okay? Less people, less food, less whatever they have to pay for them. Now, in 2012, there was this other woman. She described herself as a Tea Party Republican, and she was searching everything that Hillary Clinton was paying for. She couldn't stand Hillary Clinton. See, all these contracts were up on the internet, and she knew how to go in and look at the contracts. And she thought Hillary was spending way too much money. But she fell into a whole bunch of other stuff that no one wanted her to know about. Contracts to pull everything important away from all 3 coastlines of the United States quickly. Contracts to do this, contracts to do this. It all had to be done by 2013. Interesting, there were these humongous contracts for 4 huge dry storage bins underground and frozen food storage bunkers underground. They were put into 4 different states, and they started off at $74 billion. Each one of these were labeled A, B, C, and D. A had so many states, and they were all, she read off the list. Each one went to A, which went to B, each went to C and D. She was on this one show for an hour, and I copied it. I still have a copy of it. I'm not sure if you want me to mention the name of it, but if you do, I will mention it. If I want, I'll keep my mouth closed. She was normally known on YouTube as Just Call Me Kit. Well, Just Call Me Kit disappeared after this show. According to YouTube, her account is still up, but the last thing she did was probably early 2013. I haven't heard anything more about her since. The movie 2012 also mentions about all these astronomers and high-ranking people mysteriously dying left and right, left and right, left and right. See, that's kind of based on the very quick, mysterious death of Robert S. Harrington. He was in charge of the Naval Institute Astronomy. NASA must have picked him when they found, with the IRIS spacecraft, an infrared spacecraft, they found something very hot and very large coming in out beyond Pluto back in 1983. A lot of the people at NASA jumped the gun, and they called a bunch of reporters in. They had news stories made about it. NASA must have been sitting on their butts, didn't know about it, because when they found out, they wanted it all declined. These guys didn't know what they were talking about. But they quickly went into official scientific posts saying that, yes, there was something out there. It was coming in. Something coming in well out past Pluto. Nibiru. And these people at NASA said it was between 4 to 8 times the size of the planet Earth. That puts it right around Jupiter's size. The Russian article about Elenin being in direct communications with a Jupiter-sized planet that was coming in. Too many leaks, too many drips, too many drops. All the guns and ammo from all the U.S. agencies, the FEMA camps clear across the United States, the huge train cars, CarMax train cars with shackles put inside of them where you can't get out. Just breathe. I'm sorry. I've been researching this for so long. NASA, with the SOHO satellites, the SOHO satellite has been following these massive ships coming into our solar system almost on a daily basis since 2000. I've been following those pictures. I have well over 3,000 pictures of these things, and they're the size of our planet, if not a little bit bigger. I spoke before UFOCon 213, and I showed these photographs. And the other speakers that were there said, "Bob, do you realize how big those things are?" I said, "No, I didn't." They're about the size of our planet. And these are massive ships. And they're still coming into our solar system. Now, NASA and some other groups like to say, Bob, those are all BS photographs. It's because of cosmic this or cosmic that hitting the cameras. But when you go to the NASA webpage and it talks about the SOHO satellite, all the cameras had upgrades to fix all of the snags and the goofy stuff. They were all fixed by 2012. And I looked at several of the photographs that NASA presented showing this is what it looks like if cosmic this or cosmic that hits the camera. And the photograph is just dotted with little tiny white dots all across the entire photograph. You can't see anything in the image. But all of the images I have are crystal clear. Crystal clear. No cosmic this or cosmic that. So it's all BS. They're watching this stuff coming in, but they don't want no one else to know it's real. I had to research a lot just in NASA to find out what would happen. And I found a lot of photographs on the SOHO cameras showing massive amounts of these starships being caught by the camera. See, the camera takes one picture every 15 minutes. So I would go back to the last 15-minute image, and there was nothing. Then suddenly there's a lot of things right there in front of it. Then the next picture, here goes Taylor and Charlie just leaving the camera area.
Are you familiar with Dolores Cannon, Robert?
I probably have heard the name, but I'm not sure. I've heard so much stuff over the years.
Go into YouTube and put Dolores Cannon in. She kind of does the same thing Edgar Casey did. She died a couple of years ago, about a year and a half ago. She does deep past life regression hypnosis, and she actually has ET contact through hypnotizing these people, and they told her about the pole shift and what's going to happen, and she said that they said that ETs are coming from all over the universe, from cosmos light years away, because they're calling it the great event, and they all want to, observe it.
Okay. Several times from 2011, NASA's satellites had picked up these ships dropping out of what I call warp. Matches Star Trek exactly. The Enterprise, when something happens to its engines and it can't go at warp speed anymore, suddenly it does a huge flash, and the Enterprise quickly decelerates until it gets down to normal space-time speeds. On these photographs, you have a huge flash, and then this thing came right out of it. It's quickly decelerating. They've caught it several different times. I think at least 5 or 6 different times. Some people like to use the term light speed drive, subspace. There's all different types of different terms that all my friends have used for it over the years. But I like to say it's coming out of warp drive because it's using a light speed drive, and it's clearly, this humongous flash, and then suddenly this thing goes flying out of it, where they're quickly catching something accidentally with the cameras at the right moment, exact time. So yes, we know about these ships coming into our system. I've got the photographs to show it, to prove it.
They're not hiding anymore. I mean,
yeah.
People in California I've seen have been posting where a mothership, they'll see the mothership, and then they'll see all these little lights drop down out of it. Have you seen those?
Well, it's the only thing that makes any sense. I mean, just like in the movie Star Wars, you have those huge ships, and then you open the doors, the magnetic thing, and the ship flies out as bay. So that would that makes total sense. I mean, for the things we're seeing in our skies, we're calling them flying saucers or UFOs. These huge motherships are coming down. They're coming into our solar system, and then they're launching these craft to come down and do whatever they have to do. I mean, if your friends listening here, go to my webpage. It's called StarshipsAroundTheSun.com. StarshipsAroundTheSun.com. You will see about 20 different images we put up on that one page. So just go up into photographs. You can see all the images of these huge things. Now, the interesting part here is that an ancient religion here on Earth knew all about them. It's called the Zoroastrian religion. They used to be in what used to be called Iran, or what's now called Iran. And they had these huge carvings on the walls of this huge thing, like a big outstretched pair of wings. And here's this Anunnaki standing right in front of it. But what a lot of people never pick up on is you look at the landing gear it has. It doesn't have bird's legs. It has landing gear. 2 metal rods coming down with round wheels on it. Now, they carved these things several thousand years ago. And they carved them with landing gear. It's called the Ahura Mazda. AUHA-MASDA. And they're just immense 20-foot-long drawings, carvings into solid rock. So the Zoroastrian religion knew all about these things. And these carvings are a direct match to the things NASA has been catching. One of them was very clear from the Soho EIT-304 camera in 2005. That's an ultraviolet camera, I think it was. And here in 2005, they caught this massive ship coming down the left-hand side of our sun very clearly. And it matches those carvings to a T. And the ship was trailing green drive plasma. Green drive plasma. When you go to my webpage, you'll see that picture under the photo section. You'll know exactly what I'm talking about. A person had it enlarged up, making it very clear.
Now, I just went and tried to find it, but the only thing I pulled up was a YouTube video that you did.
Under www.starshipsaroundthesun.com?
Oh, I said around the world. Okay. I put the video up though that you did. I'll go back and see if I can find it. Starships Around the Sun.
Aroundthesun.com. Now, I did the video you're talking about. I did several over the years. One of the major ones that really got me started with a lot of this recent stuff was third moon. I can't think of the third phase of the moon.com. They have a lot of videos. They heard me on a radio show once years ago, and they asked me to do a video for them. So I called in. I sent them a lot of the photographs, and They did one show, then they did a second show. See, the ETs have been helping. They've been working with our leaders. These ships have been seen coming out of Warp Drive or whatever by SOHO and the other satellites. They've been seen firing immense beams of energy at pieces of things. They're shooting like a huge phaser beam, to put it in a simple term.
Mm-hmm.
And these beams are very clearly hitting something where the beam stops. If it doesn't hit anything, it keeps going, but it's pointed like an arrow. That means the beam missed whatever. Okay? Now, the ETs, they put immense satellites to orbit around our sun about 10 years ago. These things are easily the size of our planet. Now, NASA doesn't like these photographs. And whenever they get them, they try to erase them every single time. But a lot of my friends, they're right there. They're following it daily. And, Bob, do you see that? Do you see that? Do you see that? Here's these immense things all around our sun. So the second video I did with third phase of the moon was about these things around our sun. Now, why are they around our sun? A lot of your listeners probably know we have an electrical solar system. To put it bluntly, we have a voltage amperage. Anything else that doesn't belong in our solar system would be on a different voltage amperage. Just like the comet Elenin, just like Nibiru, just like these 8 or 13 planets that are orbiting around Nibiru. See, it causes our sun to interact violently with them. Our sun is seen putting sparks, throwing out sparks towards these other things. And these massive things around our sun are supposed to be controlling our sun's output. That's why we didn't have all the solar storms we were supposed to have happened in 2012. Because this is supposed to have been the hottest cycle every 11 years. But it's been very quiet, except for this.
But we are getting solar storms now, and it's affecting our weather. Don't you agree?
Whether it's from our sun or whether it's from the 8 things that are in our skies right now, I honestly do not know.
I mean,
I am not aware.
It started pouring out here, and it is raining so hard it sounds like someone's pounding on my house.
Okay. Our moon controls the tides around the planet Earth. High tide, low tide, high tide, low tide. Because as it orbits around our planet, it pulls the water with it as it goes. So say there's 8 planets in our skies right now, and they're getting really close to us now because people are seeing them larger and larger and larger. I've got photographs going from April 10th, actually January 1st, 2015, showing some of these things in our skies. And they were just little tiny dots back then. Now they're big.
Yeah.
They're enormous. They're big.
I have been watching too, and I mean, I've been telling a lot of my friends it's getting bigger, it's getting bigger, it's getting closer, and it is.
Okay. But I think these things, each one of them, are affecting the Earth's weather right now. They've been slowly affecting it as they drew closer and closer. Marshall Masters, one of the best researchers on this stuff, saw Pluto, and it was warming up way back years ago because he was seeing methane put up in the atmosphere. That only comes in the atmosphere when it's warming up. Then the next planet, Uranus, I think it is, coming inwards. Each planet from Pluto, which is a dwarf planet now, each planet from Pluto all the way in got warmer and warmer and warmer. All the moons orbiting around Saturn got warm. All the moons orbiting around Jupiter got warm. All the way in. NASA imaged Nibiru when it was coming in, before it went around our sun. See, Nibiru orbits at a high angle to the ecliptic that every planet in our solar system is on. It's a high angle. Robert S. Harrington said in his works back before 1993 that it went through our solar system at about a 35 to 40 degree high angle. So it was coming from up above, going down below, and going back out up above.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Any of your people that have astronomy programs, like I said, open them up, look at our solar system, back way off, click on the little dwarf planet called Sedna, Sedna, and back way off. You will see Sedna with its humongous orbit all around our solar system. But our solar system is way down in the right-hand corner of its orbit. Sedna has a huge high-angle orbit. Also, it's about a 35 to 45 degree high angle above the ecliptic we have. And it's shown very clearly in the astronomy programs. I wonder how we knew that. You see, Sedna is
in our planet. I have a friend on Facebook that lives in Canada, and she said today on Facebook, she said, well, winter's here, we're getting snow.
People, my friends over in Europe, are also saying it feels like it's skipped ahead 1 or 2 months also.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes, that's what she said. She said we should be wearing flip-flops still. And we're over here shoveling snow.
Now, Sedna is the dwarf planet number 7 orbiting around Nemesis. So if I were to put a dot right in the middle of Sedna's orbit, that's where Nemesis is right there, even though it's not being shown. My friends have gone through a couple of astronomy programs, and here's this huge circular orbit, but there's no star or dwarf planet, dwarf star in the middle of it. And here's our solar system way down here on the right side. Now, if they watch that video on YouTube, Nemesis, our sun's evil twin, the scientist who's the main character shows the exact same thing. He shows Sedna orbiting around. He never mentions or shows where Nemesis might be. It's all kept quiet. Okay? Now, Pope Benedict, interesting person. The first Pope, Catholic Pope to retire in 600 years. When he retired, he went on several German radio shows and he blasted the Jesuits for their alien agenda. Why would he blast? See, the Jesuits were put in charge of every observatory around the planet. The Jesuits pay for all that stuff. That's why all the observatories are kept quiet. The Jesuits were put in charge of basically the Vatican secret police.
Well, the current Pope is a Jesuit.
Well, the Jesuits, interesting, yeah. The Jesuits were put in charge of all of the communications and the secret meetings with the ETs. Our new Pope, Pope Francis, is a Jesuit. And from what I've been told by my friends down in South America, he's an excellent person. An excellent person. So I'm not blasting him one bit. But the Vatican has been very closely watching all this stuff since 1955. See, in 1954, Eisenhower handpicked the Bishop of Los Angeles, Francis McIntyre, to be his personal spiritual advisor at a meeting at what used to be called Muroc Airfield. Muroc Airfield was later changed names to Edwards Air Force Base. During this 2-day visit, he met with 3 alien races. The Greys, a reptilian-looking race, and an interdimensional race called the Etherians. Randolph Hearst was there, and one of his parties, Gerald Light, saw the whole thing after he had been debunked and cleared. He saw them playing around with one of the flying saucers. And at the end, everyone was sworn to secrecy except the bishop. The bishop said no, because they wanted him to be quiet even to God. So the bishop ignored the warning and he left.
Well, my guest last week, he lives on Edwards Air Force Base. He wrote the book Disclosed, and he is in contact with the Grace.
Now, the bishop's plane had to stop for refueling as going across the United States before it could go to Rome. At one of its fuel stops, the men in black forced their way onto the plane, 2 of them, and they demanded that the bishop remain silent and sign the declaration like everyone else was supposed to have been done.
Do you think the men in black are aliens?
I don't know what they are. I honestly don't. The bishop refused, and his guards forced the men in black off the plane. His plane took off, went to Rome. He met with Pope Pius XII and told him everything. Pope Pius XII was very angry because the bishop told him there were 2 races living here on the earth that looked just like humans.
Yep.
Just like humans.
The tall whites do.
And the Pope didn't like it. He didn't want it to be blabbered about. Because he thought that if other humans knew that they were living here, they wouldn't listen to the Catholic Church anymore. So he put an archbishop over the bishop and quickly started negotiations between the Vatican and the United States. The next meeting, rather quickly, was in 1955 when Eisenhower flew to Edwards Air Force Base. Interesting, 1947, the military was just starting to deal with the Doppler radar systems. Doppler radar systems. There were 3 craft which were crashed in and around Roswell. They were shot down by the Doppler radar systems. 1 craft was taken by the Army, the other craft was taken by the Navy, the other craft was taken by the Air Force. Interesting person. Army Colonel Philip Corso. He was put in charge of all this stuff later on during his military career. He was there to collect the first craft for the Army. There were 2 alien survivors. One was shot trying to escape. The other one was taken in, and he was taken away. Supposedly, he was questioned, and they were able to get out of him that that the ETs had bases on the dark side of our moon. And he told them about it. And they allowed him to play with the undamaged craft that they had because the communication system still worked. Basically, they allowed him to phone home. And in 1953, 3 ships were seen coming in by our astronomers. And they made up the communications somehow, some way, and that's why Eisenhower met with them. See, the craft didn't have any controls inside. It didn't have any food storage or whatever. It didn't have any to go poo-poo into. Basically, they were just a scout ship. You remember the movie Firefox?
Yeah.
Years ago, Clint Eastwood, I think it was. He was the American that found the United States found out that the Russians were designing fighter planes that you didn't have. You used your mind to fly them. See, they also found one other thing in the crashed ships. This huge goldish-looking ring which sat on top of the Greys' heads. They finally found out that this thing uses the primal brain, not the main brain, but the smaller primal brain underneath the main brain. And they were using their minds to tell the aircraft how to fly.
It's like a telepathic thing, correct?
Exactly.
Yeah.
The Russians had also shot down a couple of these ships, and they had the same technology. So his was a Russian aircraft, the MiG-25, it turned out to be basically, that was flown by the pilot's brain. And we found out about it when we sent the pilot over there to Russia to steal it. But there were 2 of the ships. Now, the Clint Eastwood actor, he could speak Russian, but he couldn't really think in Russian since he always thinks in English. And he finally caught on just as the other pilot was right on his tail, and he finally could, think in Russian and took out the other plane. And then he safely brought the Russian plane home, and yay! That was part of the technology that this Colonel Philip Corso had reverse engineered. And in his book, The Day After Roswell, he talks about all of this.
Now, the aliens that look like humans, do you know how to identify them? Because I do.
I don't. I probably have walked right in front of them, and I have no idea what they look like.
They have one flaw, Robert. They have
What's
one
that?
flaw. And I can send you some video footage of it.
Okay, cool.
There are some of them that are newscasters, and when they're on camera, their eye changes. They have an eyelid that closes, like, do you ever see a lizard? When it closes, it has like a film eyelid that closes over its eye.
Like an alligator, yes.
Yes, that's what it is. and people have actually caught it on camera. And a lot of them are newscasters. But yeah, that eyelid, when it closes over their eye changes. The pupil isn't round. It's like a cat's eye.
And that might be the reptilian-looking ET race that President Eisenhower met with. Because he met with the Greys, a reptilian-looking race, and an interdimensional race called the Etherians. Now, it was kind of interesting. When Eisenhower met with the Nordics in 1955, they were warning him to not deal with the other three races he met the year before. He couldn't trust them. And that's where all the abduction stuff started, not too long before that or right after that. So some of the races are doing the abductions, possibly with handing us a little tiny bit of advanced technology. And that's why they've got.
I always said that they cut a deal with them to experiment on humans in exchange for technology.
And and that might have been the warning that the Nordics, which were later leaked by the Vatican to be the Anunnaki, that's what they warned Eisenhower about. Now, when Eisenhower got back to the White House after the meeting, he warned everyone to never talk about aliens, flying saucers, or anything ever again. And he handed everything over to MJ-12. See, the year before, he was all set to go public with what they met with. His hands were tied by MJ-12. He couldn't say anything. Now, if you go to my website,
there's a video that somebody just caught Hillary Clinton. She was answering a question, and she did the same thing with her eye. Only one eye did it, but it did it. I'll send you the video.
I've seen those different things on Facebook. Seeing something like that I take differently versus seeing pictures of everyone from around the planet showing me the same thing over and over and over and over and over.
We have one guest that has had their hand rose. Let's see, we'll let him ask a question. Welcome to the call, Arizona. You have a question for Robert tonight?
Yes, I do. CERN is supposed to be tearing a hole in the time-space continuum. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Not as an expert, which I'm not. I've heard this stuff too many times before, that CERN has been opening these interdimensional passages to allow certain things to come in. Well, here's this interdimensional race called the Etherians, and CERN is playing with interdimensional passages. Another interesting thing here, brand new show recently on TV called The Dead Files. There's this one woman named Amy and her partner, who is a retired New York City homicide detective, I think he is. One of the shows, they were up in Oregon, and she is just going off the wall because she can see and talk to ghosts. And she could see these things opening up in the field behind the house, and she clearly described it as interdimensional beings and interdimensional creatures coming into our world.
Well, that's what I had seen, an article where someone who lives around where the CERN is, they had written and put this up on the internet that their dog is seeing things in the backyard now since they've been messing around with this CERN. And that it won't go outside because it can see them.
And if she can see them, and that's the first time on any of those shows where a person mentions them, that she was clearly seeing interdimensional beings and interdimensional creatures. Now, were these portals, have they always been open? Have they been opened recently by CERN to allow certain beings to come here to help us or whatever? I don't know. You have a fantastic question there. Honestly, I just cannot answer it. I don't know enough. But I can, that's what that one TV show mentioned. It's called The Dead Files.
Well, can't you imagine that there would be, like, so many different species of intergalactic, I'm sure there are more than 3.
Well, over the centuries, people around our planet, all around our planet, have drawn, carved beings that no one makes any sense of. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
The Native Americans have done it. People over in India. All around the planet. You've got guys, people in space suits. These things were here at one point, and we humans, wow, cool. Let's see if we can draw it. Maybe it'll come back. It's all fakes. Yeah, someone went there and they painted them on there just to be on the TV show. All this stuff. But
I did see something interesting. A woman had a video camera on her baby in the kitchen, and a little tiny, I don't know what it was. It wasn't a person. It was like it didn't have clothes on. It looked like some kind of demon ran past her kid in this video. Behind it was probably about 6 inches, and she caught it on her camera.
Okay. This is where you have to be really careful walking down that knife edge of religions and what we see as science fiction. Are these beings the demons that we're told are only from religion? Or are they a real thing besides the religion?
It looked like a real thing. It looked like a little monster type thing, though. But it didn't. You could tell the way it ran. It didn't want to be seen.
But people for thousands of years have used one term after the other to describe these evil-looking things they're seeing, and it's either been put down as demons or whatever in every known religion. So, are the religions accidentally hiding the fact that these are other beings, or is it just in the religious part? So I have to walk.
Can I
my guest is going to come on the last Friday of this month. He's a paranormal investigator, and I've been trying to get him on the show, and he said that he has been extra busy. So he is going to come on and do a show with me Halloween weekend. He said we'll just call it a Halloween show. And I can't wait for him to get on because I want to see why he's extra busy.
Years ago, about 1983, we bought a rundown, fix-em-upper house. We weren't told all the right stuff about it. I started to clear out the junk that was underneath the front stairs. And the next night, hanging in the walk-in closet in our bedroom, here's this in full color, this man was hanging from the closet, from the ceiling. And it's still very clear in my head where he had black muddy shoes on, he had blue overalls, and a red and white checkered shirt on. His hands were hanging straight down. And it just, bleh. And I was watching all
experiences here.
Yeah, I told my wife about it, and she really didn't believe it. A couple months later, my younger brother was home, and the power kept going on and off, on and off. So he goes down into the basement, flashlight, and here's this being standing right next to the power panel, his hand on the switch.
Then he went. You said that, Robert, because 2 days ago, starting at about 3 o'clock in the morning, my power kept going on and off for like 1 second, like someone was flipping the main on and off.
Right. Now, my wife was the third person. See, my younger brother, he saw him with his head. He smiled back at him, and he went, bink. My wife was home one day, a little bit early. She was taking a shower, and something opened the shower door. And she saw this thing walk into the shower room while she's taking a shower, and he grabbed the shower curtain and pulled it back and smiled at her. And she saw him all in living color. So I believe very clearly that something is out there.
Oh, when I first moved in here, I had this thing, I don't know whether it was a dream or what, but it cut a hole in my ceiling in the living room. And it was like a little fat guy. He kind of looked like a troll, and he had real long fingernails on his fingers, and he had long arms, and he was reaching out of that hole trying to grab my throat, and I screamed. Well, the guy who would shoe our horses came over, and I was telling him about it, and he looked at me and he said, "Oh, I wouldn't sleep up there if you paid me $1 million." And I said, "Well, I've seen him twice. I've seen him twice." And he said, "Well, you got to come over one day and talk to my daughter." And he goes, "That's all I'm going to say to you is you got to come talk to my daughter." So I stopped by his house one day, and his daughter came home, and he goes, "I want you to sit down and tell her what you saw in the closet." And she said, "Well, my sister and I have bunk beds, and I heard this scratching noise in the closet." And she goes, "And I thought there was a mouse or a rat in there." And so she said, "I got up and I opened the door," and she described that guy that I just described, identical. She goes, "And he looked ashamed. He didn't have any clothes on, and he took his long arms and he kind of tried to cover himself." And I said, "What did you do?" She goes, "I slammed the door and jumped back in my bed and covered my head up." And I said, "Oh, God." But she described him, and that's why her dad was freaking out. When I described him, he didn't want to tell me that, because he didn't want me to think he made it up. He wanted her to tell me. But it was the exact same thing. And he said that it travels this road, is what he said. He goes, "I think that thing travels up and down this road."
Okay. The other thing is that there in 1954, this person named Gerald Light, he was with Randolph Hearst's group that came. He wrote a letter to a friend of his down in San Diego like a day after. And if you go to my webpage, Starships Around the Sun, you'll see it right there on the front. Where he's there, blah, blah, blah. Eisenhower did meet with the aliens, and he's probably going to go public. And while I was there, we saw all this stuff. And he said this hand-picked team of Western scientists were completely flabbergasted. Their jaws were all on the floor when they watched a demonstration. This huge block of something dematerialized right before their eyes. And they had it repeated several times. Now that term, dematerialization, was not used until Star Trek in 1965. The transporter beam.
Up, right?
The transporter beam, yes.
You're really scaring me tonight, Robert, because
well, I'm sorry.
They have been barking at something downstairs, and when I go down there, there's nothing down there.
Yeah. Well, my friend Don Hull, Don Hull up in Washington, she's had the same problem for quite some time now, where it's it's not out in the boonies, but she's got a nice house, and then there's a lot of trees, and her dogs do the same thing.
Yeah, but she's got the men in black following her around. And when I first started being targeted, I had the men in black following me around.
Yeah. Well, they know where I am, so I'm not going anywhere yet. So all the world's governments are prepared for this. See, they know the Earth's crust will shift. And Norway, where the Doomsday Seed Vault was built by all the world's billionaires, that's how 60 Minutes caught wind of it. A whole list from, all the world's billionaires. I have no idea if Donald Trump was on that list, because I can't find it anymore. It used to be on the internet. They pulled it. But from the Rockefellers to, person from Microsoft, they all paid into it, huge amounts to build it. And that's the emergency seed vaults. That one seed vault, if it lost power, could stay frozen for 25 years. Now, the largest seed vault here in the United States is up in Denver. So we're already prepared for it.
Yeah.
The deep underground military base under the Denver airport is fully active now. Inside some mountain called Iron Mountain or something, they built 3.
Uh-oh. He got knocked off the call.
Oh, boy.
It's weird that happened right when we started talking about this stuff because Mike Goldberg had said on one of the shows that I did with him that the reason that they target me and that they're trying to stop me from doing these shows is because from time travel, they knew I was going to be saying things that they didn't want out there.
Yeah. Well,
but it was weird what happened the other night when the power and it would only go off for like 1 second, and then it would come back on. It was like someone was down there flipping the switch, and it happened like several times throughout the night, and then the next morning it happened twice, like at 10 o'clock in the morning. It happened twice in a row. And the thing is, I have infrared cameras that record into a DVD or a DVR. And I had picked up an image. It was really strange. It looked like a shadow person, but they didn't have any legs. They had a cape on, and they came out from behind my pine tree, and instead of walking, their body just went from side to side like they were floating, but there were no legs. And I viewed that. I even showed it to a few people. In fact, I showed it to our building inspector. I said, "What the heck do you make of this?" And he looked at that and he said, "I don't know." He goes, "There's definitely something there." He goes, "But I have no idea what you picked up there." And I was thinking, Well, at first I was thinking it was military and it was cloaking. But where in the heck were the legs at?
Yeah. Well, I told you about my experience in my apartment. I was being rolled across the floor by something invisible. Rolled off my bed, literally, so quickly that I would hit the wall and the chairs and bruise myself. And I received these messages in my mind that there was this alien race that was messing with me. And they were like parasites.
Well,
And then,
I definitely believe they're here on our planet, and I wouldn't doubt it if they're messing with me. You know, I don't know. All I know is I didn't like it when my power kept going on and off because I was thinking, man, maybe I should. I did unplug my computer, and I was thinking, man, maybe I should unplug some of my things because, you know, a power surge will blow up your electronics. I hope Robert will call back in. I don't know. Maybe he's being prevented, or maybe his phone went dead. We'll give him a couple minutes, but we already are past midnight here tonight. It was a good show, though. It really was. He kind of was scaring me towards the end. Like, wait a minute. This crap's happening to me right now.
Yeah. Well, you know, if they could, they would really do us damage, but I don't think they really have that power.
Well, I think that my dogs are a deterrent, and I'll tell you why, because the one night when some weird stuff was happening here, Marlo, he got up. I was sitting on the couch, and he got up, and he was standing in front of me, and he was looking in the dining room, and I looked, and he was looking like he saw something, and he put his head down, and he just started going, Arr. And I'm looking like, what the heck are you growling at? But he saw something. Every hair on his back was standing up.
Yeah.
And he was growling at something. It was dark in there. I couldn't see anything, but I was, freaking out because of all the stuff that's been happening here. I was like, I ain't getting up and looking, whatever it is, go away. But my dogs are seeing something. And I'm telling you, if he said someone was standing down there turning his master switch on and off, I'm not going down there to look.
Oh, no.
No, my basement's real. This house is over 100 years old. It's creepy down there. There ain't no way I'm going down there. You want to play with the electrical box? Have at it.
Yeah. Well, we lived in what was a TV sanitarium when I was a little girl, and I swear I saw things. And I had dreams that were so real that I wonder if I wasn't really awake seeing these things.
Yeah. Well, when I have John Moore on the last Friday of this month, I've already got him booked. He finally booked a date with me. He said we'll make it a Halloween special show. I said okay, that's fine. When I had him on, he said he was raised in the funeral home, and and that's what got him into investigating paranormal. And he has no fear of it. But I can't wait to tell him the stuff that I've been having happen here, because he told me if I had paranormal activity again, he would come over and do my home. And I'm starting to think maybe I should have him come over here.
Yeah. He can monitor ectoplasm and things like that, right?
And, he doesn't charge, so it ain't going to cost me anything. And I think it would be interesting. Maybe he can find out what's happening in my house, because there is definitely something going on. Well, it doesn't look like it's going to come back, so I will just have to contact him tomorrow and tell him we finished up the show without him. I hate that when that happens, when a guest just disappears or gets knocked off. And that has been happening to us a lot lately, too.
Yes, I've noticed that.
You know what happened to me the last show I did when I had John Teeter, the time traveler, on? I had no control of my board. I could not mute or unmute anybody, and I could not stop the recording. I had to actually hang up, log off my computer, log back into TalkShoe, and then call back in so that I could get control of the board to stop the recording.
Wow.
So, somebody don't want me doing shows. Obviously, I contacted TalkShoe and told them why I've been on here for almost 13 years. Why am I not being advertised as being on the live screen, where it shows everybody that's running the show? They don't even answer me.
Yeah.
So obviously, I'm touching somebody's nerves here.
Yeah. They
but
can't
anyways,
actually
it's
prevent
after
you
midnight,
from being
guys.
on the
I want
air.
to thank you all for joining me. I hope you enjoyed the show. I do not even have a clue what I'm going to be doing next week or even if I'm going to be out here because I've been running a fever for the last 3 days, and if I'm this sick again next week, I might skip a week. So you're just going to have to look for my postings or see if I send you an email. I did send out a lot of emails to people to schedule a guest, so if someone does contact me and wants to do that date, I will fill it. But if I don't have anyone to fill it, there's a good chance I might not be here. Depends if I'm not feeling well, it'll be a definite, but if I am feeling well, I might just come out and throw some guess what's happening information out here. But anyways,
okay.
I want to thank you guys all for joining me. I hope you enjoyed the show. For those that haven't been around and you need to go back into my archives and I know you missed last week's show, Arizona, and that's an interesting show. It was a very good show, and he had a lot of good information. The time traveler, John Teeter, and then I did a show before that on Nubaru again. Actually, I did 2 shows before that on Nubaru. So go on into my archives and listen to some of my past shows. And on that note, I'm going to try to pull up. Oh, and here's another thing I wanted to mention. I posted the link for it up in the chat. That Mark Zuckerberg has bought all the buildings around his mansion, and he's building this huge multi-million-dollar bunker. He actually had all these houses bulldozed down, and he's building this huge bunker. So, you know something's going on. When when they're doing all this, and why did they just get rid of Robert? Especially when we started talking about what's going on. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's suspicious.
Well, anyways, thanks everybody for joining me. I lost my closing bumper song, so you have to bear with me for a minute till I pull that up.
Your beginning bumper song, just to let you know, your beginning bumper song was very garbled. I don't know why that was, but it was it was not tracking very well at all.
Yeah, you know why? Because somebody is linked into my phone. Somebody's linking into my phone.
Okay, well, that makes sense.
Yeah, I got a strange phone call after, it was after I had, the day I had John Teeter on. I got a strange phone call that day from the state police out of California wanting me to donate. to their widow's fund. And I'm like, no, you only donate to the one in your state, not California. And that guy was very strange.
Right.
And when John called me right before the show, he told me, he said, you know what? I got the same phone call. It was very strange.
Yeah. Interesting that it was the widow's fund, huh?
Well,
You're
I
being
said
a
to him,
widow
I said,
and
I really can't afford to donate to you guys anymore. I got my own problems here. And see now, somebody just cleared my whole computer. I lost TalkShoe and everything.
Really?
Yes.
Now?
Yes. My screen's gone.
Wow, you really did touch a nerve, didn't you?
That means I got to log out and log back in order to stop this recording. I'll tell you what.
Oh, my God, so nobody can hear you, right?
I don't know. I have no screen. Why don't you go ahead so there isn't any dead air, and can you recite your poem about the machine, and I'll try to get my...
Oh, okay.
Unreal.
Right. Yeah. Well, you're excuse the expression, pissing in their Wheaties.
First they kicked Robert off the show, and then they shut my whole dang computer down.
Yeah.
Please leave my Edison on tonight.
Oh.
No flipping it on and off and on and off, and I don't know, whatever it is that keeps going in the dining room and freaking the dogs out. Please stay the hell out of my house.
Well, we just got
You're going to come in, at least run the vacuum or something,
Do the dishes.
I tell you what, I'll crap my pants tonight. I hear that vacuum cleaner come on.
Okay. Well, I'm going to preface this particular poem with the mark of the beast, because I know that a lot of people are not aware of this, but I'm sure a lot of people are too. They want to chip everybody with these microchips that change the brain chemistry. And I think they're the mark of the beast, because when you change the brain chemistry, you're changing everything. And it might kill the soul. You never know. I don't know what it's alien technology or what it is. But anyway, don't accept this chip, whatever you do. Don't accept this chip. And this poem is about the mark of the beast and the microchip. And I'm going to change my voice a little bit to sound like a computer. Hi, I'm a microchip. Yes, my brother's Hal. Satan downloads to my brain, but I am in control. I am working for the beast, Big Brother's database. Watch me take my orders. Watch me interface. There is no reversing this. Locked to the terminal. I have lost all a sense of self and all my hope as well. I am just a microchip with no will of my own. I am just a barcode made of flesh and bone. Yes, I have been branded on my forehead and my hand. I gave my soul to Lucifer. I didn't understand. I work for the anthill. The anthill is my home. I am the collective mind. I am just a drone. I work for the anthill. Things aren't as they seem. I work for the anthill. I work for the machine. I will live much longer, yes. I'm healthy. I'm not shy. I will do as I am told, although it's all a lie. I will hurt you people. Anyone, in fact, I think it's my idea, but that is all an act. I'll starve you, and I'll persecute. I will do it blind. I hate you for your freedom, because I don't have a mind. I work for the anthill. The anthill is my home. I am the collective mind. I am just a drone. I work for the anthill. Things aren't as they seem. I work for the anthill. I work for the machine. I am just a microchip with no will of my own. I am just a barcode made of flesh and bone. Yes, I have been branded on my forehead and my hand. I gave my soul to Lucifer. I didn't understand. I work for the anthill. The anthill is my home. I am the collective mind. I am just a drone. I work for the anthill. I gave up my dream. I work for the anthill. I work for the machine.
Okay, thank you, honey. I am back in the window.